Memory. Memory is also very important. According to Vygotsky, in early childhood, um, memory is very important in early childhood because it's essential for building up other faculties, sort of build upon it. Other things the brain does builds on memory. Okay, and he says that we have two classifications. We have the elementary functions. We have higher functions. So we have memory as a baseline. All of us have memory, but in the brain has other functions that builds on this memory. Okay, some are elementary, some are higher functions. So it means the higher functions are the parts of the brain that function more analytically, that do some more important processing that we need in learning situations. Okay, so while the elementary type of function can be stimulated externally from the environment, so we can stimulate learning from the learning environment, the other one is self generated by personal engagement. All right. So you can use stimulus and response as a way of engaging a young learner. But if you want to cause the learner to use the higher functions of memory, you need to engage the learner. You need to create methods of teaching and learning that engage them, that gets them involved, to take ownership, where they can discuss, they can explore, they can be analytic thinkers, they can critique a thing, they can look for difference and all of that. So by personal engagement, learners can function in a higher order. Okay? So it also means that if we want to improve personal engagement, then the seating arrangement in class might be a tool for doing that. Now, this suggests that our learning environments are very important for learning because the structure of the classroom also supports some of the things that we do in the classroom. So let's influence the learning environments in our classrooms. Let's look for the best structure, to encourage what we want to do to engage our learners. So this is just basically what we're talking about. Now we can have passive or active learners. Now, looking at African children or children all over the world, particularly Nigerian children, Nigerian children tend to be more passive in some classrooms. They're very boisterous outside the classroom. In the classroom, they're using, a lot of the time, the teacher has downgraded them to using the elementary memory functions. While outside, the higher functions are working in everyday life. They're learning all manner of things, learning how to jump, to play, climb trees. And to do that, you have to be very calculating, learning how to ride bicycles, to catch balls, or to dodge somebody who wants to catch you. The higher order skills are functioning outside of the classroom. Why can't we bring them into our classrooms? That is the challenge that we are giving to you. So children can naturally engage intensely in learning environments outside the classroom. So if they do that, why can't we bring that into the classroom and replicate, this kind of engagement in classrooms so that the higher order thinking takes place? Some of the activities children love to engage in after school are role plays, games. I remember as a child, I used to build, children build houses inside their homes. We used to use cushions and cloth, and furniture to build little caves or homes or houses inside our bedrooms. Those were skills that were important. It was showing our ability to use space and to shape it into orders that we wanted. It was being done by higher order thinking. It was important. But then we come into classrooms and we become passive. Why? That's not good for us. Then we also have the issue of exam-oriented schools. Too much focus on exams. And a lot of pressure is brought on teachers and learners. So the teacher falls back on memorization or cramming. So the culture from the environment is impacting learners and teachers at the same time. And we have to break some of this because that is not too good for us. We need to live in the real world. In the real world, learners need to be very engaged. They need to be proactive. They can't be passive, because if they're passive, they won't achieve at least as much as they should. So, research carried out in Nigeria shows that, to tell you how the learning culture was in this place where the research was carried out, they found out that students who spent more time listening to their maths teacher actually did better. While this may seem quite good, what it's saying is that it was showing the learning culture, that the culture had trained learners to listen. But you see, the children are not going to stay in that classroom forever. They're going to move from that classroom, and at higher levels, higher order thinking is required of them. So we need to engage our learners. Listening is good, the auditory style is good, but there are other styles and other ways we can access knowledge. This is what we're saying, that teachers need to be aware that our cultures are impeding progress. So whereas they are good for certain things, but at another level, we might adopt a different learning culture that makes the learner more active. Why? Because, for example, when the student goes to university and comes out and doesn't find a job, what should he do? Create a new job for himself, a new opportunity for themselves. But if you have been taught to just listen, then you're waiting for someone to instruct you on what to do. And then we have cases of graduates who have graduated for up to 10 years and they are still saying they're jobless. In fact, I'm sorry to say, in Nigerian society, I found out that a lot of people keep saying they have no jobs, and yet they are self-employed. They say, "Oh, I don't have a job. I don't have a job." And they are self-employed. They do not consider the business that is giving them more money than what they are, what they could be earning in an office. They're getting more money, but they consider themselves as jobless. It's the culture, it's the perception, and we have to break those kinds of things. In a new world economy, learning is changing. Memorization is useful, but cannot always help learners, because we need to apply knowledge or transfer knowledge to one situation or the other. So as the world is becoming more connected, new forms of learning, that enable learners to make decisions promptly, to take the initiative, to become more analytic in their thinking, those methods need to take precedence. So the new world does not favor passive learners. It favors learners who take the initiative and lead with the ability to pioneer new frontiers. I was reading just yesterday, that a Nigerian student posted on social media that he had a third class in his university. And this story keeps repeating itself in Nigeria. He had a third class. He was only good enough for third class in Nigeria. And then he managed to go to Canada, and he's the best in his class in Canada within a year. He's so smart that he took an IQ test, and they found that his IQ was one of the 1% of the world. That's assuming you believe in IQ tests, because if you believe in multiple intelligences, it means that IQ tests are meant for certain types of intelligence. All right? So, how do you explain the fact that a student who could only do third class in Nigeria comes into a Western world learning more complex concepts, because he's at a higher level now doing a master's, and yet he's the best of his class, he's top of his class? Something is wrong somewhere. So the culture of learning hindered him. But when he got into a system where he's more engaged, where there are more resources, he's more he's more stimulated to do research, to ask questions, to investigate, to be more analytic in his thinking. He comes alive and he becomes best in the class. So the world economy is changing, and if we focus our learners on just passive learning, then we are putting them at a disadvantage.